What's going on, everyone? This is Badass Review here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Infinite Series. Is it even still called that anymore? I'm not even sure. Anyways, this is the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Mantis Build-A-Figure. I'm going to start with this figure out of all the reviews because I'm sure that most people are probably interested to see how this figure turned out. Overall, I think it's a great figure. I think it is kind of... I wouldn't say lazy, or I don't know how to describe it. I'd say it's kind of a cheap way to get you to buy the whole wave of figures. I have this, wave to, get this figure. I feel like she should have been just a regular figure in the wave, and maybe Death's Head 2 should have been the Build-A-Figure, in my opinion. A lot of people were really wanting this figure. Not even just for like the movie figure, but they were wanting like a comic accurate version, which I think would have been cool. And instead they made her the Build-A-Figure, which I feel like they kind of were gonna get out of that whole deal with after having Hitmonkey and Rocket Raccoon. So I guess in that regard it could be a lot worse, because those figures, while they are okay figures, small BAFs to me are just kind of a little lame. But anyways, looking over the figure, it is very nice. I thought she was going to be a little tall to begin with, but she's actually right in line with everybody else. I have Gamora here for reference, and they're about the same height. She is a little bit taller. Well, I think it's just her antennas are just kind of throwing me off, but they are about the same height. For some reason, when I'm looking at her by herself, she just seems very tall, but she is very skinny too, so I think that might have something to do with it, because a lot of times really tall skinny girls kind of tower over people. But looking at the figure, I actually really like it. Some really nice details. I really like the green metallic paint that they have going on throughout her body. Very nice. The head sculpt is good. Very very strange looking. How do you say it? Face sculpt. The character herself, she was kind of weird looking, just because of her eyes. That's kind of what got to me, was her giant eyes. But other than that, really cool. I wasn't expecting this figure to come out as good as she did, and yeah, I kind of hope that they will, kind of utilize some elements of this figure in the near future, because I wouldn't mind seeing that more. Particularly in the arms here. The arms are a completely new sculpt specifically for her. This entire body is a special sculpt just for Mantis. And what I really like about the arms here is that they implemented a shoulder swivel, or not a shoulder swivel, a bicep swivel at the kind of not like the lower part of the forearm or the bicep. And whereas typically we would get just the elbow swivel, and while that is fine there, it also, I think it's a lot better to have it here, because it kind of decreases that risk of this breaking at the elbow, which is something I always fear with figures that do that. Kind of like Gamora here, she doesn't have it. She has the elbow swivel, but I don't really like that, because it doesn't really look natural to me when I have to like bend someone's elbow like out of socket or whatever. So I really like that they did that. I like to see that more on future figures. And I can't get this in focus. I'm using a new camera, seeing how it works out. And it's kind of hard to zoom in because I'm also very close to it, and I don't have a really good review station, so it'll probably fade in and out, so I'm sorry. Like I said, the head sculpt's pretty good. The one thing I'd say this figure is really lacking is skin tone shading. She seems really pale. The shoulders here are very plasticky. There's no any kind of like detail in the skin. She's very like soft, I'd say. And the kind of the same with the face. There's really no shading in it. It's very just kind of pale. She's got her lipstick and her eye paint, and that's about it. The antennas, they probably could have been painted a little bit to maybe like give off the effect that she's using her powers. They didn't do that, so it's just kind of like molded plastic antennas. So a little bit of skin tone would have been nice, but it's not too big of a deal because she was pretty, I wouldn't say pale, but you know, she didn't really have anything going on with her skin all that much, so not a big deal. And it's not like it takes up the entire figure, so I can't really complain too much. On her back here, there's a lot of details going on with her dress. A lot of sculpted details here, especially down here on the lower part of her outfit. I don't know what this is called, but it's very nice. It's got some nice details and sculpting in it. The paint looks all good. Just more of that metallic green, like I said. Looking at her legs, not much going on except for the side. I can't really explain what this is. It kind of reminds me of like fish gills or something. Not gills, but like kind of like how the side of a fish looks, their skin or whatever. It's kind of how that reminds me of. But again, nicely sculpted. This is all ridged. It's textured, so it sticks out. Painted, so that's really nice. And that kind of continues down to the bottom of her shoe there, if you can see that. It does kind of fade away. I don't know if this whole thing's supposed to be green or if there's supposed to be like a green streak, but it is sculpted down, but the green kind of fades out. And on this side, it almost seems like the paint's kind of skimpy a little bit, like there could have been a little bit more. At least in my light, it looks like it's you know, missing a little bit of paint. But other than that, not too big of a deal. She also does have some of that sculpting here on the side of her arm as well, so that is very nice. Overall, really nice figure. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say that they don't really want the whole wave to get this figure, and they're pretty upset about it. I can understand, because when you really just want one character, and that character ends up being the Build-A-Figure, especially it's a character we haven't had before in a movie or comic version. You know, people tend to use the movie versions for their comics display, so I can understand the upset. While I'm not like super upset, I do think that they need to stop doing Build-A-Figures like this, because you know, Toy Biz, they made colossal figures for BAFs. Like we had Giant Man, Apocalypse, Sentinel, stuff like that. You don't really get that anymore. I think like the biggest BAF they've had since they've started is probably the Age of Ultron Hulkbuster, and then Giant Man next to him. Giant Man's probably the second biggest. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like back in the day when you're paying like $10 for a Toy Biz version, you were getting, you know, a really good deal, plus you're getting the Build-A-Figure. And if you did fork out the money, which ended up costing less than a whole wave nowadays, it's like you got a really big BAF. So when you're paying $150 for a whole wave, and what you're getting is essentially just a $20 figure, you know, kind of sucks. I mean, the figure's not bad by any means, but I think for how much we're paying to buy a whole wave, the Build-A-Figure should have a lot more payoff in terms of size, details, and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll see more of that. I'm sure this won't be the last time we get like a normal size character for a Build-A-Figure, but as long as they're not terrible, I don't have a problem. But I still think that there needs to be bigger Build-A-Figures for the price we're paying for these figures. Now, going over articulation, she has a really good range of motion. Her hair is pretty soft all around, so it really doesn't impede any of the articulation, which is nice. You can get a full 360. She can look up. I will say she can't really look up too well. The hair still kind of gets in the way, even though it's soft. But that's okay. I still think she gets up a good amount. It's all a ball hinge and a swivel, so she can look down and up. The arms go in and out. They rotate 360 degrees. Like I said, she rotates at the lower part of the bicep here, and then she also rotates at the elbow single joint in the elbow as well, but it's about 90. It's either about 90 or is 90. Kind of hard to tell because the way her arm moves outward. She's got a hinge and a swivel in the hands. She's got this upper diaphragm joint, which doesn't really go too far forward, but it does go far back, so that's nice. Full range of motion all around. The legs can go forward and back a little bit, in and out. Rotates at the upper part of the thigh here. Double jointed knees, which look kind of weird when you bend them. It's really flat. And like I said, she does have really skinny legs. I don't feel like they're very fragile or anything, but you know, they are very skinny, and that could pose a problem in the future. Just if your joints are really stiff and hard to move, be careful. She does have a rotation here at the boot, and then she has an ankle pivot and a rocker. I will say though, while this foot seems to be okay, this leg here, the hinge in the foot is a little hard to move, and that kind of causes the swivel at the boot to kind of like warp a little bit. So be cautious when you're moving the foot that you grip it so that the leg doesn't snap off, because I feel like that will be a problem in the future, or may already be a problem for some people due to the pegs being too soft and snapping. So you could potentially break your figure. But anyways, guys, that's my review. Overall, it's a great figure. If you can get her by her on her own, if you just want her, it's kind of hard sell, because you know she's probably going to go for about 40 bucks, I'm sure. So you know, get her if you really want the figure.